The California sun cast long shadows across the winding driveway of the Sussex family home in Montecito as Prince Harry's black SUV slowly approached the gates. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles white against the leather. After 3 weeks away in London attending to royal duties and family obligations, the familiar sight of his American sanctuary filled him with a mixture of relief and anticipation that made his chest tight with emotion. The past month had been a whirlwind of meetings, ceremonies, and carefully orchestrated public appearances. Every moment had been scheduled, every word measured, every gesture analyzed by the press and palace officials alike. But now, as the electronic gates recognized his vehicle and silently swung open, Harry felt the weight of royal protocol beginning to lift from his shoulders like morning fog dissipating under warm sunlight. He had left England that morning on a private flight, his mind racing with thoughts of home throughout the 11-hour journey. The airplane's luxury meant nothing to him compared to the simple pleasure he anticipated of walking through his own front door, of breathing air that didn't carry the weight of centuries of tradition and expectation. During the flight, he had stared out the small window, watching the Atlantic Ocean pass beneath him like a vast blue bridge connecting his old life to his new one. The house came into view as he rounded the final curve of the driveway, its Spanish colonial architecture warm and welcoming against the backdrop of the Santa Ynez Mountains. Unlike the cold stone walls of Windsor Castle or the formal grandeur of Buckingham Palace, this home spoke of comfort and family life. Bright bougainvillea climbed the walls in vibrant purple cascades, and the carefully tended garden showed signs of recent attention. Harry smiled, knowing Meghan had probably spent the morning ensuring everything looked perfect for his return. As he parked the vehicle, Harry noticed small details that spoke of the life continuing in his absence. Archie's bicycle was propped against the garage wall, its bright red frame catching the afternoon light. A small soccer ball rested in the garden bed where it had obviously been kicked and forgotten during an enthusiastic game. These simple signs of his son's presence made Harry's heart swell with an emotion so powerful it nearly took his breath away. The front door opened before he could reach for his keys, and there she was. Meghan stood in the doorway, her dark hair catching the golden light, wearing a simple white sundress that made her look radiant and relaxed. The smile that spread across her face was like sunrise after a long night, and Harry felt every muscle in his body relax for the first time in weeks. "Welcome home," she said softly, her American accent wrapping around the words like a warm embrace. They had spoken every day during his absence, multiple video calls and countless text messages, but nothing compared to seeing her in person, to being able to reach out and touch her hand, to smell the familiar scent of her perfume mixed with the jasmine that grew wild in their garden. Harry dropped his bags on the front step and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly that she laughed and protested gently that he was crushing her. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent that meant home more than any building ever could. For a moment, they simply stood there, two people who had built a life together against impossible odds, savoring the simple pleasure of being reunited. "How was the flight?" Meghan asked as they finally pulled apart, though she kept her hands on his arms as if she wasn't quite ready to let go completely. Her eyes searched his face, reading the fatigue and stress that 3 weeks of royal duties had etched there, but also seeing the relief and joy that being home was already beginning to restore. "Long," Harry replied, his voice rougher with emotion than he had expected. "But worth every minute to be here with you." He cupped her face in his hands, marveling at how such a simple gesture could feel so profound after weeks of formal handshakes and carefully measured interactions. "Where's our boy?" Meghan's smile widened, taking on a mischievous quality that Harry recognized and loved. "He's been planning a surprise for you all morning. I think you'll find him in the back garden, though he made me promise not to spoil it by telling you what he's up to." She took his hand, interlacing their fingers in a gesture that felt both casual and deeply intimate. "He's missed you terribly, though he's tried very hard to be brave about it." They walked through the house together, Harry's eyes taking in every familiar detail. The living room with its comfortable sofas and family photographs, the kitchen where they had shared countless meals and conversations, the hallway lined with Archie's artwork and family pictures that told the story of their life together. Each room felt like a chapter in a book he never wanted to end. The sound of young voices drifted through the open patio doors, and Harry's heart quickened. He could hear Archie's distinctive giggle, the sound that never failed to make him smile no matter how difficult his day had been. There was also another child's voice, probably one of Archie's friends from the neighborhood, engaged in some elaborate game that involved a great deal of running and excited shouting. "He's invited Tyler over for your homecoming," Meghan explained as they approached the back doors. "They've been working on this surprise since breakfast, and I've been banned from the garden for the past 2 hours while they put the finishing touches on whatever they're planning." Her eyes sparkled with amusement and love as she watched Harry's face transform with anticipation. Harry paused at the threshold, suddenly overwhelmed by the simple normality of it all. His son was playing in their garden with a friend, planning surprises and getting dirty and experiencing the kind of childhood that Harry himself had never been allowed to have. The contrast between this moment and the formal ceremonies he had endured in London was so stark it made his chest tight with gratitude. "Papa." The voice was pure joy, pure excitement, pure love, and it cut through every defense Harry had built around his heart during his weeks away. He turned toward the sound and saw Archie running across the lawn, his red hair catching the light, his face beaming with a happiness so complete and unself-conscious that it took Harry's breath away. The little boy launched himself into his father's arms with complete trust and abandon, and Harry caught him easily, spinning him around as Archie squealed with delight. The weight of his son in his arms, the warmth of his small body, the scent of sunshine and grass and childhood innocence that clung to his clothes, it all combined to create a moment of pure perfection that Harry knew he would treasure forever. "I missed you so much, Papa," Archie said, his small arms wrapped tightly around Harry's neck. His voice was muffled against Harry's shoulder, but the emotion in it was crystal clear. "Mama said you had to do important work, but I wished you could come home sooner." "I missed you too, buddy," Harry replied, his voice thick with emotion. He held his son close, marveling at how much the boy seemed to have grown in just 3 weeks. "But I'm here now, and I don't have to leave again for a long time." The promise felt sacred as he spoke it, a commitment not just to his son but to the life they had built together in this place of peace and possibility. Archie pulled back to look at his father's face, his expression serious beyond his years. "Did you see Grandma while you were in London? And Uncle William?" The questions were asked with the careful curiosity of a child who understands that some topics carry weight and complexity beyond his understanding. Harry's heart clenched at the innocent inquiry. His relationship with his family remained complicated, fraught with hurt feelings and misunderstandings that seemed impossible to bridge. But, looking into his son's trusting eyes, he found the strength to focus on the positive. "I did see them," he said carefully. "And they asked about you. They want you to know they love you very much." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either, and Harry had learned that sometimes the most important truth was the one that protected the people you loved most. Archie nodded solemnly, apparently satisfied with this answer, before his attention was captured by something much more exciting. "Papa, we made something for you. Tyler helped, and Mama let us use the good paint, and we worked really hard." The words tumbled out in an excited rush as Archie wriggled to be put down. "You have to come see, but first you have to close your eyes." Harry set his son down gently, then obediently closed his eyes as small hands took his, guiding him across the familiar terrain of their back garden. He could smell the jasmine and lavender that Meghan had planted, could hear the gentle splash of their fountain and the distant sound of traffic from the main road. But mostly he was aware of the trust his son placed in him, the simple faith that his father would follow wherever he led. "Okay, you can open them now," Archie announced, his voice vibrating with excitement and pride. Harry opened his eyes and found himself looking at a large banner stretched between 2 trees. The fabric was covered in handprints in every color of the rainbow, and painted across the middle in careful, uneven letters were the words "Welcome home, Papa." Below the banner was a small table set with his favorite teacup and a plate of homemade biscuits that were slightly lopsided but made with obvious love and care. The sight hit him like a physical blow, so unexpected and beautiful in its simplicity that he felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This was what he had given up his royal titles for, what he had crossed an ocean to find. Not just love, though that was part of it, but the chance to be truly known and celebrated for who he was rather than what he represented. "Do you like it?" Archie asked anxiously, suddenly uncertain in the face of his father's emotional reaction. "Tyler helped with the handprints, and Mama helped with the letters, but it was my idea to surprise you." It's perfect, Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. He knelt down to pull his son into another embrace, not caring that his expensive suit was getting grass stains from the lawn. It's the most beautiful welcome home I've ever received. Tyler, who had been hanging back shyly during the reunion, stepped forward with a gap-toothed grin. Archie said you're a real prince, he said with the matter-of-fact curiosity of childhood. But, you seem just like a regular dad to me. The observation was so innocent, so perfectly accurate, that Harry laughed out loud. You're absolutely right, he said, reaching out to ruffle Tyler's hair. I am just a regular dad. That's exactly what I want to be. Meghan appeared at his side with a camera, capturing the moment for their family album. But, more than that, she was documenting proof of the life they had built, evidence that their difficult journey away from royal duties had led to something precious and real. Her eyes met Harry's over their son's head, and, in that glance was a conversation that needed no words. They had made the right choice. They were exactly where they belonged. As the afternoon wore on, Harry found himself settling back into the rhythm of family life with an ease that surprised him. They had tea and biscuits in the garden while Archie and Tyler regaled him with stories of their adventures during his absence. The boys had built a fort in the oak tree, learned to skip stones in the neighbor's pond, and started a collection of interesting rocks that they displayed with scientific precision along the garden wall. The stories were ordinary and wonderful, exactly the kind of childhood memories Harry hoped his son would carry with him forever. As he listened, he felt the last of his London tension melting away, replaced by a contentment so complete it seemed almost foreign after weeks of stress and obligation. When Tyler's mother came to collect him for dinner, Harry found himself genuinely sorry to see the boy go. The ease with which Archie had made friends in their new community was one of the unexpected gifts of their California life. Here, his son could be just another child in the neighborhood, invited to birthday parties and playdates without the complications that would have surrounded such simple pleasures in England. As the sun began to set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that reminded Harry why he had fallen in love with this place, he and Meghan sat together on their back patio while Archie played nearby with his collection of toy cars. The scene was so perfectly ordinary, so beautifully domestic, that Harry felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. How are you really? Meghan asked softly, her hand finding his across the small table between their chairs. Her question was gentle but direct, and Harry knew she was asking about more than just his flight or his tiredness. She was asking about the weight he carried, the complexity of loving a family that had never fully understood or accepted the choices he had made for his own happiness. Better now, he answered honestly, turning his hand palm up so their fingers could intertwine. London was hard. It always is. But, being here, seeing Archie, holding you, it reminds me why we made the choices we did. It reminds me that we built something good. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their son create elaborate storylines for his toy cars, his imagination transforming their simple patio into a complex world of adventure and possibility. The sight filled Harry with hope for the future, for the man his son would become in this place where he was free to dream and explore without the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on his shoulders. As darkness began to fall and the first stars appeared in the clear California sky, Harry realized that this moment, this simple evening with his family, was worth every sacrifice he had made. The titles, the traditions, the approval of people who would never understand his choices, none of it mattered compared to this. He was exactly where he belonged, with exactly the people who mattered most, building a life that was entirely their own. The morning light filtered through the gauze curtains of their bedroom, casting soft patterns across the walls as Harry slowly awakened to the sound of gentle breathing beside him. For a moment, he lay perfectly still, allowing himself to savor the simple pleasure of waking up in his own bed, with Meghan's warmth beside him and the familiar sounds of their Montecito home beginning to stir to life around them. The contrast to his sterile hotel room in London couldn't have been more pronounced. Meghan was curled against his side, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one hand resting on his chest in the unconscious gesture of intimacy that had developed over their years together. Harry studied her sleeping face in the early morning light, marveling at the peace that seemed to radiate from her even in sleep. The past 3 weeks had been difficult for her too, he knew, managing their household and caring for Archie while dealing with the constant speculation and criticism from the British press about their life choices. Carefully, so as not to wake her, Harry reached for his phone to check the time. 6:30 in the morning, which meant he had slept for nearly 9 hours, the longest uninterrupted rest he had enjoyed in weeks. In London, his sleep had been fragmented by time zone confusion, stress, and the weight of expectations that seemed to press down on him even in unconsciousness. But, here, in the sanctuary they had created, his body and mind had finally been able to truly relax. The sound of small feet padding down the hallway made him smile. Archie was an early riser, much like Harry himself had been as a child, though unlike Harry's regimented childhood mornings, their son was free to explore the house and garden at his own pace. Harry could hear him moving about in the kitchen, probably trying to reach the cereal boxes in the pantry or attempting to pour his own juice with varying degrees of success. "He's been waking up early every day since you left," Meghan murmured, her eyes still closed but a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I think he's been hoping you'd come home in the middle of the night and surprise him at breakfast." Her voice was soft with sleep and affection, the kind of intimate morning conversation that Harry had missed desperately during his time away. "Maybe I should go surprise him now," Harry whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. The scent of her shampoo, mixed with the jasmine that drifted through their open windows, created a sensory memory he wanted to hold on to forever. These small moments of domestic bliss were what sustained him through the challenges of their public life. "5 more minutes," Meghan protested, snuggling closer to him. "I've had to share you with the world for 3 weeks. I deserve 5 minutes of being selfish with my husband before our son claims all your attention for the rest of the day." Her words were playful, but Harry could hear the genuine emotion beneath them, the acknowledgement of how difficult their separation had been for both of them. Harry wrapped his arms around her more tightly, understanding exactly what she meant. Their relationship had been built in the public eye, scrutinized and criticized from its earliest days. Finding moments of genuine privacy and intimacy required constant effort and creativity. These early morning conversations, before the day's responsibilities claimed them, had become sacred time that belonged only to them. "I love you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of everything he couldn't express about how much she meant to him, how grateful he was for her support and understanding, how impossible his life would be without her steady presence beside him. "Thank you for taking care of everything while I was gone. I know it wasn't easy." "I love you too," she replied, finally, opening her eyes to meet his gaze. "And it wasn't easy, but we're stronger than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. We've survived worse than 3 weeks apart." Her reference to their earlier challenges, the intense media scrutiny, the difficult break from royal duties, the process of building a new life in a foreign country, was understated but profound. The sound of something crashing in the kitchen, followed by Archie's voice calling, "It's okay, I got it," made them both laugh and reluctantly acknowledge that their peaceful morning interlude was coming to an end. Harry kissed Meghan's forehead once more before slipping out of bed and pulling on a t-shirt and pajama pants. "I'll go assess the damage and start breakfast," he said, pausing at the bedroom door to look back at his wife. She looked beautiful and content in the morning light, surrounded by the comfort of their shared space, and Harry felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly overwhelmed him. This was what happiness looked like, he realized. Not the grand gestures or public acclaim he had once thought he needed, but these quiet moments of love and family and home. Harry made his way down the hallway, noting the photographs that lined the walls, pictures of their wedding, of Archie's first steps, of family vacations and ordinary moments that had been elevated to treasure by virtue of being shared together. Each image told the story of the life they had built, evidence of their commitment to creating something beautiful and lasting despite the obstacles they had faced. He found Archie in the kitchen, standing on a step stool at the counter, surrounded by the remnants of what appeared to be an ambitious attempt at making breakfast. Cereal was scattered across the granite surface, orange juice had been spilled and hastily wiped up, and their son was carefully arranging sliced bananas on a plate with the focused concentration that only a young child could bring to such a task. "Good morning, buddy," Harry said softly, not wanting to startle him. "That looks like a very important project you're working on there." Archie turned with a brilliant smile, his face lighting up with the pure joy that children reserved for their favorite people. "Papa, I'm making breakfast for you and Mama. Tyler's mom taught me how to cut bananas safely with the plastic knife, and I remembered that you liked them on your cereal." His pride in this accomplishment was evident in every word, and Harry felt his chest tighten with emotion at his son's thoughtfulness. That's very considerate of you, Harry said, moving to help clean up the scattered cereal while keeping his tone casual and appreciative rather than critical. One of the things he loved most about their family dynamic was the way they encouraged Archie's independence while gently guiding his learning. Should we work together to finish getting everything ready? Yes. And then, we can eat outside and watch the hummingbirds at Mama's flowers. Archie's enthusiasm was infectious, transforming the simple act of breakfast preparation into an adventure. Harry marveled at his son's ability to find joy and excitement in the most ordinary moments, a gift that Harry was still learning to appreciate after a childhood where every activity had been scheduled and supervised. Working side by side, father and son completed their breakfast preparations with the easy cooperation that had developed over the months since Harry's return to family life. Archie chattered continuously, sharing stories about his activities during Harry's absence, his observations about their neighbors, and his plans for the summer that was approaching. Harry listened attentively, asking questions and offering encouragement, treasuring this glimpse into his son's developing personality and worldview. "Papa," Archie said suddenly, his voice taking on the serious tone that usually preceded his most profound questions, "when you were in London, did you miss us as much as we missed you?" The question was asked with the directness that only children possessed, cutting straight to the heart of complex emotions without artifice or hesitation. Harry paused in his coffee preparation, considering how to answer honestly without burdening his young son with the full weight of adult complications. "I missed you and Mama every single day," he said finally, kneeling down so he could meet Archie's eyes. "Sometimes missing someone you love can make your heart feel heavy, but it also reminds you how special they are to you." Archie nodded solemnly, processing this information with the gravity of someone much older. "I told Mama that my heart felt heavy sometimes too, but then she would show me pictures of you on her phone, and it felt better." His matter-of-fact acceptance of emotional complexity never ceased to amaze Harry, who had spent years learning to acknowledge and express his own feelings. "Your Mama is very wise," Harry said, reaching out to ruffle his son's hair. "She takes good care of all of us, doesn't she?" The question was rhetorical, but Archie answered with enthusiastic agreement anyway, launching into a detailed account of how Meghan had helped him process his father's absence while maintaining their normal routines and creating new traditions to mark the time until Harry's return. Meghan appeared in the kitchen doorway just as they were finishing their preparations, wrapped in a silk robe with her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked radiant and relaxed, more beautiful to Harry than she had ever appeared in any formal photograph or public appearance. "Something smells wonderful in here," she said, accepting the cup of coffee Harry handed her with a grateful smile. "Archie planned the whole menu," Harry explained, gesturing to their son, who was carefully carrying a bowl of fruit to their small breakfast table on the patio. "He's been taking very good care of us both, from what I can see." The pride in his voice was unmistakable, and Meghan's expression softened as she watched their son arrange the table with meticulous attention to detail. "He has indeed," she agreed, moving to help carry the remaining dishes outside. "He's grown up quite a bit in the past few weeks. I think he understood that he needed to be extra helpful while you were away." Her observation carried a note of both pride and sadness, acknowledging their son's resilience while regretting the circumstances that had required it. They settled at their outdoor table, surrounded by the garden that Meghan had lovingly cultivated and that represented so much of what they had hoped to achieve in their new life. The morning air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and the distant salt tang of the Pacific Ocean. Hummingbirds darted among the flower beds, their iridescent wings catching the early sunlight, while the Santa Ynez Mountains provided a majestic backdrop to their simple family meal. "Tell me about the polo match," Meghan said as they began eating, referring to one of the charitable events Harry had attended in England. "Was it as stiff and formal as you expected?" Her question was casual, but Harry could hear the underlying concern about how he had handled the return to his old world and the people who still viewed their departure with disapproval. "Pretty much," Harry replied, taking a bite of the perfectly ripe banana Archie had prepared for him. "Lots of forced smiles and careful conversations. Everyone being very polite while avoiding any mention of you or our life here." The bitter edge that crept into his voice revealed more about his experience than his diplomatic words did. Archie looked up from his cereal with curious interest. "Why would they avoid talking about Mama? She's the best part of our family." His innocent observation cut straight to the heart of the issue, highlighting the absurdity of people who claim to care about Harry while refusing to acknowledge the source of his happiness. Some people have a hard time understanding when someone makes different choices than they would make, Meghan explained gently, reaching over to squeeze Archie's hand. It doesn't mean those people are bad, just that they see things differently than we do. Her diplomatic response was perfectly calibrated to satisfy their son's curiosity without exposing him to the full ugliness of the situation. That seems silly, Archie declared with the logical clarity of childhood. If Papa is happy here with us, why wouldn't they want him to be happy? The question hung in the air, its simple wisdom highlighting the fundamental disconnect between Harry's new life and the expectations of his birth family. You're absolutely right, Harry said, reaching across the table to take his son's other hand. Happiness is the most important thing, and I'm happiest when I'm here with you and Mama. That's why we built this life together, so we could all be happy. His words were meant for Archie, but his eyes met Meghan's across the table, reaffirming the commitment that had brought them to this place. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their nearest neighbors, an elderly couple named Frank and Eleanor who had become unofficial grandparents to Archie during their time in Montecito. The couple appeared at the garden gate with their daily morning walk, accompanied by their ancient golden retriever, Sonny, who had become one of Archie's favorite companions. "Harry!" Eleanor called out with genuine warmth and enthusiasm. "We saw your car in the driveway last night and hoped you were home. How was your trip?" Her greeting was uncomplicated by protocol or hidden agendas, the kind of straightforward welcome that Harry had learned to treasure since moving to California. "It's good to be back," Harry replied, standing to greet them properly while Archie ran to pet Sonny, who accepted the attention with the patient dignity of an old dog who understood his role in the neighborhood social structure. "I missed the weather here, if nothing else. London was cold and rainy the entire time I was there." Frank laughed heartily, clapping Harry on the shoulder with the easy familiarity that had developed over months of casual friendship. "Well, you picked the right time to come home. Eleanor's been predicting perfect weather for the rest of the week, and her meteorological instincts are better than anything on television." His teasing of his wife was affectionate and comfortable, the kind of long-married banter that Harry and Meghan often observed with fascination and hope for their own future. "I was wondering if you might join us for our community barbecue this weekend," Eleanor said, directing her invitation to both Harry and Meghan. "It's nothing fancy, just the neighbors getting together in the park, but Archie always has such a good time playing with the other children, and we'd love to have you both there if you're not too busy recovering from your travels." The invitation was extended with genuine warmth and without any hidden agenda or expectation of special treatment. It represented everything Harry had hoped to find in their new community: acceptance, normalcy, and the kind of uncomplicated friendship that had been impossible in his previous life. "We'd love to come," he said, speaking for both himself and Meghan without hesitation. "Wonderful!" Eleanor beamed, while Archie cheered his approval from where he was still lavishing attention on Sonny. "I'll bring my famous potato salad, and Frank will man the grill as usual. It'll be nice to have our little family back together again." Her casual reference to them as part of the neighborhood family unit highlighted the sense of belonging that Harry had never expected to find but now couldn't imagine living without. After their neighbors continued on their walk, the Sussex family lingered over breakfast, reluctant to end the peaceful morning interlude. Archie regaled them with his plans for the day, which involved building an elaborate fort in the oak tree and teaching his father a new card game he had learned from Tyler. His enthusiasm was infectious, reminding Harry of why he had worked so hard to give his son the gift of a normal childhood. "I should probably check my messages at some point," Harry said reluctantly, knowing that his return to California wouldn't completely free him from the obligations and responsibilities that came with his public profile. "But not yet. This is too perfect to interrupt with work." His words reflected the delicate balance he was still learning to maintain between his public duties and his private happiness. "The world can wait a few more hours," Meghan said firmly, reaching for his hand across the table. "Your family needs you more than your email does." Her assertion was both protective and practical, reflecting the boundaries they had worked hard to establish around their time together. The early months of their marriage had been nearly consumed by external demands and expectations, teaching them the vital importance of protecting their personal time. As the morning progressed into afternoon, Harry found himself settling back into the rhythm of family life with surprising ease. The tension that had accompanied him from London continued to dissipate, replaced by the contentment that came from being exactly where he belonged. Every interaction with Meghan and Archie reinforced his conviction that they had made the right choices, despite the ongoing criticism and speculation from across the ocean. The day unfolded with the gentle pace that had become characteristic of their Montecito life. There were no pressing appointments, no rigid schedules, no cameras documenting their every move. Instead, there was time for conversation, for play, for the simple pleasure of being together without any agenda beyond enjoying each other's company. It was, Harry realized, exactly the kind of day he had dreamed of during his lonely weeks in London, and it exceeded even his most optimistic expectations for what home could feel like. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of their living room as Harry found himself in the unfamiliar but delightful position of being completely at leisure in his own home. Archie had convinced him to participate in what their son called the greatest fort-building project in California history, which involved every cushion, blanket, and pillow they owned being strategically arranged to create an elaborate indoor kingdom that somehow managed to incorporate elements of both a medieval castle and a space station. "Papa, you have to crawl through the tunnel to get to the control room," Archie instructed with the serious authority of a general commanding his troops. His architectural vision was ambitious beyond his years, requiring Harry to navigate through a series of increasingly narrow passages that tested both his flexibility and his patience. "And don't touch the support beams or the whole thing will collapse." Harry obediently crawled through the designated tunnel, his expensive London suit long since abandoned in favor of comfortable jeans and a t-shirt. The transformation in his wardrobe reflected the larger change in his life, from rigid formality to relaxed authenticity, from public performance to private pleasure. As he emerged into Archie's control room, he found himself face to face with his son's latest masterpiece, a complex control panel constructed entirely from cardboard boxes, toilet paper rolls, and an impressive amount of colorful duct tape. "This is incredible, buddy," Harry said, genuinely impressed by the creativity and engineering that had gone into the construction. "What does this button do?" He pointed to a particularly elaborate creation that appeared to be made from a paper plate and several bottle caps. "That's the communication system for talking to other planets," Archie explained matter-of-factly, as if intergalactic communication were the most natural thing in the world. "And this one controls the shields that protect us from asteroid attacks. Tyler helped me design it before you came home, but he said I should wait to show you because dads are really good at pretending to be space explorers." The innocent faith in his father's imaginative abilities touched Harry more deeply than any formal honor he had ever received. In Archie's eyes, he wasn't a prince or a public figure or a controversial celebrity, he was simply Papa, the person who could be counted on to take space exploration seriously and to understand the critical importance of asteroid defense systems constructed from household items. "Tyler was absolutely right," Harry said solemnly, settling cross-legged on the floor beside his son. "This is definitely the most sophisticated space station I've ever seen. What's our first mission?" His willingness to enter completely into his son's imaginary world came naturally now, though he remembered how difficult such spontaneous play had been in the early days of fatherhood, when he was still learning to set aside his adult concerns and embrace the freedom of childlike wonder. "We need to rescue Mama from the planet of endless laundry," Archie declared with dramatic flair. "She's been trapped there for weeks, and only we have the technology to save her." His plot was clearly inspired by observation of domestic reality, transformed through a child's imagination into an epic adventure worthy of the most sophisticated space station in California. From the kitchen came the sound of Meghan's laughter, indicating that she had overheard their conversation and was appropriately amused by her role in this interplanetary drama. "I'm not sure whether to be offended or impressed that I've been cast as the damsel in distress," she called out, her voice carrying the warmth and humor that had first attracted Harry to her and continued to anchor him through the challenges of their public life. "You're not a damsel in distress," Archie corrected seriously, poking his head out of the fort to address his mother directly. "You're the queen of the laundry planet, but you want to come home to Earth because our house is better and we have better snacks." His revision of the storyline demonstrated both his loyalty to his mother and his practical understanding of what motivated the important people in his life. Harry found himself laughing until tears came to his eyes, overwhelmed by the perfection of this moment, sitting on the floor of their living room, surrounded by an elaborate fort construction, engaged in an intergalactic rescue mission that somehow involved laundry and snack preferences. It was so far removed from anything he had experienced during his formal upbringing that it felt like a gift from another universe entirely. "Your mission parameters are acceptable, Commander Archie," he said with mock seriousness, saluting his son with the respect due to a superior officer. "What are our orders?" The joy on Archie's face as he launched into a detailed explanation of their rescue strategy was worth every sacrifice Harry had made to be here, every criticism he had endured, every relationship he had strained in pursuit of this simple happiness. Their space mission was interrupted by the arrival of an actual transmission from another planet, or at least another continent. Harry's phone buzzed with an incoming video call from his cousin Princess Eugenie, one of the few family members who had maintained regular contact despite the geographical and emotional distance that separated them from the rest of the royal family. "Should we answer it in the fort?" Harry asked Archie, who nodded enthusiastically at the prospect of showing off his creation to their royal cousin. Harry positioned the phone so that both he and Archie were visible, though the elaborate blanket backdrop made it immediately obvious that this was no ordinary call. "Harry!" Eugenie's face appeared on the screen, her expression delighted and slightly confused as she took in the unusual setting. "Are you calling me from inside a tent? In your living room?" Her amusement was evident, but there was also a wistfulness in her voice that Harry recognized as longing for the kind of spontaneous family moments that were rare in their formal world. "It's not a tent, Cousin Eugenie," Archie corrected politely, leaning into the frame with the confidence of a child who knew he was loved. "It's a space station. Papa and I are on a rescue mission to save Mama from the planet of endless laundry. Would you like to help?" His invitation was extended with complete sincerity, as if interplanetary cooperation between California and England were a perfectly reasonable proposition. Eugenie's delighted laughter filled the room, and Harry could see her adjusting her own position to better participate in the conversation. "I would be honored to assist with such an important mission," she replied with appropriate gravity. "What can I do from my position here in London?" Her willingness to enter into Archie's imaginary world demonstrated the kind of natural warmth that had always made her Harry's favorite cousin. The conversation that followed was unlike any royal family interaction Harry had experienced in years. Instead of careful pleasantries and avoided topics, they found themselves engaged in an elaborate discussion of space travel logistics, rescue protocols, and the specific challenges posed by laundry-based planetary imprisonment. Archie served as mission commander, assigning roles and responsibilities with the confidence of someone who had clearly given considerable thought to the operational requirements of intergalactic rescue missions. "I wish we could visit you in your space station," Eugenie said eventually, her tone shifting slightly to carry more weight. "It looks like you're having much more fun than we are here." The comment was light, but Harry caught the underlying message. Life in the royal family continued to be constrained by protocol and expectation in ways that made simple joy difficult to achieve. "You're always welcome here," Harry replied, meaning it completely. "Our space station has room for visiting cousins, and I think Archie would enjoy showing you his other engineering projects." The invitation was genuine, though both adults understood the complications that would make such a visit unlikely in the immediate future. After they ended the call, Archie immediately returned to their rescue mission with renewed enthusiasm, apparently energized by the opportunity to share his creative work with their extended family. Harry found himself reflecting on the contrast between this natural, joyful interaction and the stilted conversations he had endured during his recent time in London. The difference highlighted everything he valued about their new life and everything he missed about the family relationships that remained strained by distance and misunderstanding. "Papa," Archie said suddenly, his attention shifting from their imaginary adventure to more immediate concerns, "are you sad that Cousin Eugenie can't come to our real house?" His emotional perceptiveness continued to amaze Harry, demonstrating an awareness of adult feelings that was both impressive and slightly concerning for such a young child. "A little bit," Harry admitted, choosing honesty over false cheerfulness. "I love Cousin Eugenie, and I wish she could visit us more often. But I'm not sad enough to ruin our space mission." "Are you?" His question reflected the balance he was learning to strike between acknowledging difficult emotions and not allowing them to overshadow present happiness. No, Archie declared firmly. We can still love people even when they're far away, and we can still have fun even when we miss them. Mama taught me that when you were in London. His matter-of-fact wisdom demonstrated the emotional intelligence that Meghan had been carefully cultivating, teaching their son to hold complex feelings without being overwhelmed by them. As their space mission reached its climactic moment, the successful rescue of Queen Meghan from the laundry planet, the real Meghan appeared with afternoon snacks and the kind of timing that suggested she had been monitoring their progress from the kitchen. She entered the fort with appropriate ceremony, playing her role as rescued royalty with the dramatic flair that her background in entertainment had prepared her for perfectly. My brave rescuers, she declared, sinking to her knees in the control room with gratitude that was only slightly exaggerated. How can I ever thank you for freeing me from the endless cycle of washing and folding? Her performance delighted Archie and reminded Harry of why he had fallen in love with her ability to find joy and playfulness in even the most ordinary moments. You can thank us by having a snack party in the space station, Archie announced, apparently having planned this outcome from the beginning. And by promising never to get trapped on the laundry planet again. His negotiation skills were impressive for someone who hadn't yet started formal school, though Harry suspected he had learned them from watching his parents navigate the complex world of public relations and media management. The impromptu snack party that followed was exactly the kind of moment Harry had dreamed of during his lonely weeks in London. Sitting cross-legged on cushions in their makeshift fort, sharing apple slices and homemade cookies while Archie regaled them with increasingly elaborate stories about their space adventures, Harry felt a contentment so profound it was almost overwhelming. This was what he had given up his royal titles to achieve, not just the absence of formal constraint, but the presence of genuine connection and unguarded joy. I love our family, Archie announced suddenly, reaching for another cookie while leaning comfortably against his father's side. Even when Papa has to go away for work, I still love our family the most. His declaration was simple but profound, expressing a security and confidence in their bond that Harry had never felt as a child himself. I love our family too, Harry replied, wrapping his arm around his son while meeting Meghan's eyes across their makeshift space station. More than I ever thought possible. The words carried the weight of everything he couldn't say about the journey that had brought them to this moment, the sacrifices and struggles that had been worth enduring for the privilege of this simple happiness. As the afternoon light began to fade and their elaborate fort showed signs of structural fatigue, they reluctantly acknowledged that even the most sophisticated space station eventually needed to be decommissioned. The process of returning cushions and blankets to their proper places became another collaborative project, with Archie supervising the careful dismantling of his architectural masterpiece while planning even more ambitious constructions for future adventures. Tomorrow we should build a submarine, he announced as they worked. Tyler's never been in a submarine, and I think our living room would make a really good ocean. His endless creativity and optimism reminded Harry daily of why children were considered such reliable sources of wisdom and wonder. In Archie's world, every day held the potential for new adventures, and every ordinary space could be transformed into something magical with enough imagination and cooperation. The evening that followed their space adventure was equally perfect in its simplicity. They prepared dinner together, with Archie helping to set the table and Harry contributing his developing skills in the kitchen while Meghan orchestrated their efforts with the efficiency of someone who had learned to find joy in domestic rhythms. The conversation flowed easily between topics serious and silly, creating the kind of family dialogue that Harry had always envied in other families but never experienced himself until now. As they sat around their dinner table, watching the sun set over the mountains through their large windows, Harry found himself overwhelmed with gratitude for the ordinary miracle of this life they had built together. Every moment felt precious precisely because it was so normal, so uncomplicated by external demands or expectations. This was what he had been searching for without knowing it, not the absence of responsibility, but the presence of authentic relationship and genuine peace. The community barbecue that weekend proved to be exactly the kind of normal family experience Harry had never imagined possible during his years as a working royal. He found himself standing beside a smoking grill with Frank, their elderly neighbor, learning the apparently crucial differences between various marinades while Archie ran freely with a group of local children whose parents treated Harry with the casual friendliness reserved for just another dad in the neighborhood. The secret is in the timing, Frank explained, flipping burgers with the practiced expertise of someone who had been manning neighborhood grills for decades. Too long and you lose all the juice, too short and you might as well serve them cold sandwiches. His instruction was delivered with the seriousness of a master craftsman sharing trade secrets, and Harry found himself surprisingly invested in learning these domestic skills that had never appeared in any royal curriculum. Across the park, Meghan was engaged in animated conversation with Eleanor and several other neighborhood women, their laughter carrying on the warm afternoon breeze. She looked completely at ease, dressed in simple jeans and a flowing blouse, her hair caught back in a casual ponytail that moved as she gestured while telling some story that had her audience thoroughly entertained. The sight filled Harry with a familiar surge of pride and love, watching his wife thrive in an environment where she could simply be herself without calculation or performance. "Your boy's got good instincts," Frank observed, nodding toward where Archie was leading a group of children in what appeared to be an elaborate game involving the playground equipment, several soccer balls, and rules that seemed to evolve moment by moment. "Natural leader, but he listens to the other kids too. That's a rare combination at any age." His assessment carried the weight of someone who had raised 3 children and observed countless others in this same park over the years. Harry watched his son with the mixture of pride and amazement that had become his default response to Archie's social interactions. Unlike his own careful, coached childhood appearances, Archie moved through the world with confidence and authenticity, making friends easily and navigating conflicts with a combination of diplomacy and directness that seemed to come naturally. It was everything Harry had hoped to give his son by choosing this life away from royal protocol. "He's learned a lot from his mother," Harry replied, accepting a beer from their neighbor's cooler and settling into the comfortable rhythm of casual conversation that marked successful community gatherings. "She's taught him that treating people with genuine respect and interest is more important than following arbitrary rules about status or hierarchy." His words carried deeper meaning than their simple surface might suggest, reflecting the fundamental differences between the values he and Meghan were teaching Archie and those he had learned as a child. The afternoon unfolded with the easy pace that characterized their best family days. There were no schedules to maintain, no appearances to preserve, no photographers documenting their every interaction for public consumption. Instead, there were organic conversations with neighbors, spontaneous games organized by the children, and the simple pleasure of sharing food and laughter with people who had become genuine friends rather than strategic connections. Harry found himself in conversation with Tyler's father, Mark, who worked as a high school teacher and had strong opinions about everything from local politics to the best hiking trails in the Santa Ynez Mountains. Their discussion was the kind of substantive but relaxed dialogue that Harry had missed during his formal royal duties, where every conversation was filtered through considerations of protocol and potential public relations implications. "You know," Mark said as they watched their son's attempt to teach a group of younger children an increasingly complex version of Capture the Flag, "when you first moved here, I wasn't sure what to expect. Celebrity neighbors can be challenging. But you and Meghan have been exactly what this community needed, involved without being intrusive, friendly without being fake." His candid assessment meant more to Harry than any formal recognition he had ever received. "This community has been exactly what we needed too," Harry replied honestly, watching Meghan help organize teams for the children's game with the natural ease that had made her so effective in her humanitarian work. "We were looking for a place where Archie could grow up feeling normal, where we could contribute something meaningful without having every gesture analyzed and criticized. You've all given us that gift." His gratitude was genuine and profound, reflecting the deeper significance of being accepted for who they were rather than what they represented. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the park, the gathering took on the relaxed quality that marked the most successful community events. Children played with increasing creativity as their energy levels fluctuated, adults settled into deeper conversations as the afternoon's formalities dissolved, and the entire atmosphere became infused with the kind of contentment that comes from shared experience and mutual appreciation. Archie appeared at Harry's side, grass-stained and slightly sweaty from his various adventures, but glowing with the happiness that came from a day spent in active play with friends. "Papa," he said, tugging on Harry's shirt with the urgency that always accompanied his most important communications, "can Tyler and Emma and Sophie come over to our house next weekend? We want to build the biggest fort in the history of California, and our backyard has the best trees for fort building." His request was delivered with the confidence of someone who had never doubted that such reasonable proposals would be met with enthusiastic approval. "I think that sounds like an excellent plan," Harry replied, ruffling his son's hair while mentally noting the need to stock up on fort building supplies and snacks capable of sustaining ambitious construction projects. "But you'll need to check with their parents first, and we should probably warn Mama that we're planning a major engineering project." His response reflected the collaborative approach to parenting that he and Meghan had developed, ensuring that such decisions involved all the relevant stakeholders while respecting Archie's growing independence. Tyler appeared as if summoned by the mention of fort building, his face bright with excitement and covered in what appeared to be barbecue sauce and playground dirt. "My mom already said yes," he announced triumphantly. "And Emma's dad said she can come if we promise to include her in all the planning, not just the building part. We're going to design it together this week so everyone gets to contribute ideas." His enthusiasm was infectious, and Harry found himself looking forward to the weekend's project with an anticipation that surprised him. As they began the process of gathering their belongings and saying farewells, Harry reflected on the profound difference between this kind of social interaction and the formal events that had dominated his previous life. Here, goodbyes were casual but genuine, plans were made organically rather than through official channels, and the entire experience felt nourishing rather than draining. It was another confirmation that they had made the right choice in building this life away from royal obligations. The drive home was filled with Archie's animated recap of the day's events, his narrative jumping between different games, conversations, and observations with the delightful chaos that characterized his storytelling style. Meghan and Harry exchanged glances in the front seat, sharing that wordless communication that long-married couples developed for expressing mutual satisfaction and contentment without interrupting their son's enthusiastic monologue. "I think that was the best barbecue ever," Archie declared as they pulled into their driveway, apparently having reached the conclusion that superior social events could be definitively ranked and categorized. "Everyone was so nice, and the games were really fun, and Tyler's mom makes the best cookies except for Mama's cookies, which are different but also the best." His diplomatic assessment of comparative baking skills demonstrated the social intelligence that Meghan had been carefully nurturing. Once home, they established themselves on the back patio for what had become their traditional post-event decompression, with Archie playing quietly nearby while Harry and Meghan shared a bottle of wine and processed the day's experiences. The evening air was warm and filled with the scent of jasmine, while the distant mountains provided a backdrop that never failed to remind Harry how far they had traveled from his previous life. "I love watching you at those things," Meghan said softly, her hand finding his across the small table between their chairs. "You're so natural with everyone, so genuinely yourself. It's beautiful to see." Her observation carried the weight of someone who had witnessed his struggle to find authentic ways of connecting with people outside the constraints of royal protocol. "I love that I can be myself," Harry replied, intertwining their fingers in the gesture that had become automatic between them. "No scripts, no calculated responses, no worry about whether my words will be taken out of context or misinterpreted. Just honest conversation with people who see me as Harry the neighbor rather than Prince Harry the public figure." His relief at this simple freedom was something he knew he would never take for granted. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Archie arrange his collection of interesting rocks with scientific precision while humming a song he had apparently invented during the drive home. The scene was so perfectly domestic, so utterly normal, that Harry felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this place of peace and authenticity. "I've been thinking about what Mark said today," Meghan mentioned eventually, referring to the teacher's comments about their integration into the community. "About how we've contributed something meaningful here. I think that's what I've been searching for, a way to make a difference that feels organic rather than obligatory, that comes from genuine connection rather than formal duty." Her reflection captured something essential about the satisfaction they had both found in their new life. "We're raising a child who understands that kindness and respect aren't determined by someone's title or status," Harry added, watching Archie carefully sort his rocks by size and color. "That's a contribution that will ripple out in ways we can't even imagine. Every friend he makes, every interaction he has, every lesson he learns about treating people with dignity, it all matters." His words reflected the long-term perspective that had helped him maintain conviction about their choices despite ongoing criticism from some quarters. As the stars began to appear in the clear California sky, they reluctantly acknowledged that even perfect evenings eventually needed to end. The process of getting Archie ready for bed had become a cherished ritual that involved story reading, gentle conversation about the day's events, and the kind of unhurried connection that Harry remembered longing for during his own childhood. "Papa," Archie said as Harry tucked him into bed, his voice taking on the serious tone that usually preceded his most profound observations, "I'm glad you came home from London. Our family is better when we're all together." His simple statement carried more wisdom than most adult analysis, cutting straight to the heart of what mattered most. "I'm glad I came home too, buddy," Harry replied, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. "This is where I belong, with you and Mama in our house with the best fort-building trees in California." His words were meant to reassure Archie, but they carried the weight of his own deep conviction about the choices that had led them to this moment. After Archie fell asleep, Harry and Meghan retreated to their own room, where they continued their conversation about the day's experiences and their observations about the life they were building together. The discussion was intimate and honest, touching on their hopes for Archie's future, their gratitude for the community that had welcomed them, and their shared amazement at how much joy they had found in the simple act of living authentically. "Do you ever regret it?" Meghan asked as they prepared for bed, her question referring to the monumental decision to step away from royal duties and build this new life. "All of it, I mean, the titles, the traditions, the certainty of your role in a system that's existed for centuries?" Her inquiry was gentle but direct, acknowledging the magnitude of what Harry had given up for their happiness. "Never," Harry replied without hesitation, pulling her into his arms in the privacy of their bedroom. "Not for a single moment. Everything I gave up was about duty and obligation and maintaining appearances. Everything I gained is about love and authenticity and building something real. There's no comparison." His certainty was absolute, born of lived experience and deep reflection about what truly mattered in life. As they settled into sleep, surrounded by the quiet sounds of their Montecito neighborhood and the warmth of their shared commitment to this life they had chosen, Harry felt the kind of profound peace that had eluded him for most of his adult life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, more moments of joy and connection, and the ongoing work of raising their son with the values they both cherished. But tonight, lying beside the woman he loved in the home they had created together, knowing that their son slept peacefully down the hall dreaming of fort-building projects and playground adventures, Harry experienced the deepest satisfaction of his life. They had built something beautiful and lasting, something that honored both their individual dreams and their shared commitment to authentic living. It was exactly what he had hoped for when he made the difficult decision to choose love over duty, family over tradition, and happiness over obligation. The reunion was complete not just because he had returned from London, but because he had finally, fully arrived at the life he was meant to live. In the quiet darkness of their bedroom, with Meghan's breathing steady beside him and the California stars shining beyond their windows, Prince Harry understood that he was exactly where he belonged, not because of his birth or his title, but because of his choices and his love. It was the most perfect homecoming of all.